Total War Warhammer 3 has been out for a couple of months now, and the first big patch has now released. It is now a good time to start getting into ranked multiplayer. I'm Chris, and this is Game Chambers, and today we will be diving into the ranked matchmaking and domination modes of Total War Warhammer 3 as of patch 1.1. I'm going to explain how the mode works, how to queue and play ranked, how to build an army, and then we're going to go through some tips and tricks to help you get through your first games and hopefully pick up a win or two. Let's get into it. Domination is the new mode introduced with Total War Warhammer 3, where two teams of 1 to 4 players battle it out over 3 capture points on a variety of maps, each with unique terrain and challenges. The victor is the first team to earn 500 victory tickets by controlling the capture points. At the beginning of a battle, capture points start in a neutral state and are locked until the 3-minute mark of the battle. Once a team has captured them, they will earn 5 victory points per second for every capture point that they own. Points cannot be returned to a neutral state and can only change owners throughout the battle. You can tell who is currently winning and owning a capture point by mousing over it in either the top bar or on the map. Players capture points by moving units into the capture zone around each point. Only a single model from each unit needs to be present in the zone for their capture weight to count. Each unit in Total War Warhammer 3 has their own capture weight, mostly dependent on their unit type. For example, infantry have got 6, cavalry 3, characters and monsters have a weight of 2, artillery has a weight of 1, and flyers cannot capture any points. However, in the current build of Total War Warhammer 3, patch 1.1, the only units that count as monsters are the Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch Soul Grinders. All other monsters actually have infantry capture weight. There are some other outliers that don't quite fit this structure, and these are Khorne Warhounds and Ogre Cavalry, which also count as infantry. I might go into more detail on this in another video, but for now, generally think of large monsters and infantry as having capture weight of 6, whereas characters and just those 3 specific Soul Grinders have a capture weight of 2. A unit's capture weight is reduced as it loses models, proportional to the unit's model count. So if you have 100 models, you lose half your models, you'll only have 50% of your capture weight. The side with the higher capture weight on a point is the one that will begin to take control of the point at a rate depending upon how much capture weight they have in excess of their opponent. The rate of capture for a point isn't clearly shown in game, but essentially you need to accrue 200 capture points to take over a neutral point and 400 to take over an enemy point. Each point of capture weight you have over your opponent gives you that amount of progress towards the capture of the point every second. So for instance, a lone character with a capture weight of 2 will capture a neutral point in 100 seconds. Essentially, the more weight you have on a point, the quicker you will capture it and the easier you can hold it. To battle over these capture points, each player has a main and a reinforcing army that they build before the match starts, after both sides have locked in their faction selection. Currently, main and reinforcement armies are split 50-50 with the available funds, but this may change due to balance updates. During battle, reinforcements can be summoned from the reinforcement points on the map using supplies. Reinforcement points come in 2 varieties, Vanguard and Standard. Any unit can be summoned from the Standard points, but only units with the Vanguard trait can be summoned from a Vanguard point. You can only summon in units from your reinforcement pool, which starts off as your reinforcing army. As units die, are sent home, or flee from the edge of the battlefield, they return to the reinforcement pool after a short cooldown. At a specific time before that cooldown is up, you can actually bring them in slightly earlier by spending extra supply over and above their cost. Supply is earned at a rate of 20 every second, and you begin the game with 500 supplies available. Domination does feature a catch-up mechanic, so if you are 1,000 to 2,000 victory tickets behind your opponent, you will gain an extra 5 supplies every second. And if you're more than 2,000 victory tickets behind, you will gain an extra 10 supplies per second. This can potentially help you come back from an initial loss, but is generally not worth it putting yourself behind to take advantage of the bonus income. So to queue and play ranked matchmaking, you need to select ranked matchmaking from the Battles tab. If you wish to potentially play a team game, you need to select Allow Team Merging up the top. If you want to play solo or with only your group of friends, make sure Team Merging is unselected and invite anyone that you wish to play alongside. After you're ready, click on Find Match. The matchmaker will then match you with an opposing team and you will be presented with the faction selection screen. You can see the map and your opponent's names. You can then select your faction and lock in. Once one player has locked in a faction, a 30-second countdown begins and you will automatically lock in the currently selected faction. All player factions are then revealed and players can start building their list. As soon as one player locks in a list, the 60-second countdown begins before the game starts. And for this reason, it's a good idea to have some lists saved beforehand that you can load if someone locks in quickly on you. Personally, I think it's good etiquette to lock in for 10 to 15 seconds when you're done, so your opponent knows that you're ready, and then you can unready to give other players more time to build their lists. After lists are built and players locked in, or the countdown is finished, the game will load and the match will begin. List building is a complex topic and very much depends on the matchup and map that you're playing on. I suggest seeking out a guide for your favourite faction or asking for help on the forums or Discord for some more advanced tips, but I'll give you some basic tips here to get you started. This is all based on my opinion and experience on the ladder, where I currently sit at around 120. If you have anything to add, please do so in the comments below so that we can all learn and improve our play. There are some things that you need to take in your army to be successful in domination. You need units that can take and hold capture points. These need to have an infantry capture weight, be affordable, and be resilient. I recommend at least 5 units from this category, with most of them being in your initial army and possibly up to 10 units in total. Good examples for each faction are: for Cathay, you want to look at your Peasant Spears and Jade Warriors. For Kislev, go-to is your Armoured Cossars. For Khorne, look at your Khorne Warriors with shields or halberds, and Spawn. Nurgle, you want to look at your Nurglings, Plague Bearers, and Spawn. Tzeentch, you're looking at Blue Horrors and Spawn. Slaanesh, you're looking at Marauders of any type, and once again, you guessed it, Spawn. Ogres, you're looking at your Gnoblars and Ogre Bulls of any type. The next thing you want is a tough, resilient Lord. I recommend, whilst learning, to remove as many items as possible from your heroes unless you are 100% sure that you are going to make use of it. Many items are either not worth the cost or take a bit of planning and micro to make their purchase worthwhile. Some good examples of lords to start with are, for Cathay, Miao Ying with Earthblood, Talons of the Night, Lifebloom, and Arcane Conduit. For Kislev, Gestalten on a Warbear with Ursun's Ward and Silax's Lullaby. For Khorne, your Exalted Bloodthirster with Bellow of Fury. For Nurgle, Herald of Nurgle, Lore of Nurgle, with Stream of Corruption and Fleshy Abundance, Children of Nurgle, Arcane Conduit, and Locus of Fecundity. For Tzeentch, Kharas Fateweaver is a good choice with Regrowth, Blue Fire of Tzeentch, Greater Arcane Conduit, and Oracle of Eternity. And for Slaanesh, just a basic Herald of Slaanesh with the Lore of Slaanesh on a Steed of Slaanesh with Slicing Shards. And Ogres, you can't go wrong with a basic Tyrant with Snacks. You're also going to need a Spellcaster, and you undertake probably only a single damaging spell, and maybe another cheap utility spell until you've really got the hang of magic and know what you're going to do with it. For Cathay, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh, I recommend the lords previously mentioned, and for Khorne, you have no spellcasters. So you only really need to think about an extra caster for Kislev or Ogres. And Kislev, I would recommend the Frostmaiden of Ice on a Warhorse with Heart of Winter to get you started. And for Ogres, a Butcher of Great Maw with Troll Guts, Blood Gruel, and extra ingredients, and just use him to keep your big monsters alive. Your army then needs an element to project its force, to aid in taking points, defending your points, or attacking your opponent's ranged or backline assets. This can either be some form of mobility or artillery that can reach out and influence battles at a distance. What you take here will greatly depend once more on the matchup and map, but I'll get into another couple of examples that are going to be useful in most situations. So for Cathay, you're going to rely heavily on your Grand Cannons, Jade Lancers, and Great Longmire Riders. For Kislev, you're looking at your War Sleds, both light and heavy, Winged Lancers, and Little Grom. For Khorne, you got Furies, Fleshhounds, and Chaos Warhounds. Nurgle, again, you want to look at those Furies, Rotflies, Plague Drones, and your Soul Grinder for its artillery. Tzeentch, you have a lot of options. You've got Doom Knights, Chaos Knights, Burning Chariots, Screamers, and Furies. Slaanesh, pretty much all of Slaanesh will fit this, but your main ones will be your Hellstriders, your Seekers, your Furies, and your Fiends. And for Ogres, you want your Gnoblast, Scrap Launcher, your Iron Blaster, and your Sabertusk pack. Finally, you need to make sure that you have brought units that are specialized at dealing with things your opponent is likely to have. This depends on matchup, but in general, you want to have the ability for your army to handle the following: armored infantry, horde infantry, armored monsters and single entities, mobile units, flyers, artillery, and you need to consider, amongst all of this, what sort of resistance your opponent has available, whether that be missile, magic, physical, or fire. Finally, if you finished up buying units and you have leftover points, use them first to upgrade the tier of a unit So for example, you would upgrade Peasant Spears to Jade Halberds, or Mournfang Cavalry to Crushers, War Sleds to Heavy War Sleds. Then look at adding abilities to your heroes. So maybe add an extra spell, an extra ability, and then finally add some chevrons to your units just to use up the last of those points. So you've built an army, and you know how the mode works. It's time to get out there and actually play a game. Essentially, to win, you have to hold the majority of the capture points for longer than your opponent. Because points cannot be decapped, your goal is to hold the majority of points for long enough that you reach your break point in tickets where you can win on a single point. This does require a bit of on-the-fly math, and it would actually be easier if tickets counted down instead of up. But essentially, if you have less than half the points remaining to reach 5,000 that your opponent does, then you can win on a single capture point. For example, if you reach 2,500 points and your opponent is still on 0, then at that point they need a triple cap to defeat you, and then you can focus simply on defending a single point. Other interesting breakpoints to be aware of are if you reach 4,000 points and your opponent is only on 3,000, then again you can win on a single capture point. And if you're at 3,000 and your opponent is only on 1,000, then it's the same again. This does go both ways, so if you're the one on the lower points values, you will need a triple cap to catch your opponent, and it's good to be aware of at least these 3 breakpoints. The basic strategy then for most battles is going to be to send most of your capture weight towards one point, with a single cheaper unit going towards another. Use your mobility and ranged assets to help your capture units get onto the point and prevent your opponent's capture units from getting there. You want to have as many of your units fighting on the point as you can, and trying to engage the enemy off the point as much as possible. Remember, only a single model from a unit needs to be on a point for its capture weight to count. Keep an eye on which opponent is bringing for reinforcements. Even if they are stalked or out of line of sight, you can still see when they call in reinforcements, and for stalk units you'll even see them briefly before they go invisible. You can also tell how many units your opponent has on the battle by looking at the top, and this may give you an idea on if they have any stalked or hidden units out there. Use your supplies to summon units that are going to counter what you think your opponent has as much as possible. For example, if they're going a lot of stealth units, get yourself some mobility so you can find out what and where they are. Try to think ahead of the victory ticket breakpoints. If you see that your opponent is ahead and going to reach one of those breakpoints before you will need to make sure that you get that 2 cap or prepare to fight for a triple cap. Remember, it takes time for units to capture a point, especially if it's contested. Don't forget that ranged infantry has infantry capture weight. So they might be able to kill the enemy and get gold value, but if you're not moving them onto the point and adding their weight to the point, it's possible that you are going to be outcapped and lose on victory tickets despite having a gold damage advantage over your opponent. You're trying to clear a point and start capturing, and you have to choose what to focus first. Usually, you want to bring down infantry units. Their capture weight will drop more quickly as they take damage, whereas single entities and large units will not drop as quick. Flyers have 0 capture weight, so keep your flyers away from the points engaging enemy units that have got a high capture weight. This means that you'll be getting damage value for those flyers, and you'll be preventing your enemy from getting capture value on the points. So the game can be pretty complex. There's a lot to learn, but there's a fantastic multiplayer community that's always willing to discuss and help new players. There are a lot of guides out there on unit control and abilities that come from the previous Wargammer games that are still pretty relevant. I'll put a couple of links in descriptions for my favourite ones, and I'll also be putting up guides for the factions as I attain a decent level of knowledge on each. The first one is just going to be a guide to Grand Cathay and how to play them on the ladder, so please subscribe so you don't miss any of our future guides. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.